Hi, welcome back to Mr. Slover's Math. Today we're going to focus on solving with the quadratic formula. So this is going to be a 2-day lesson. We're doing day 1 today and then day 2 tomorrow. So our warm-up is getting us ready for what we're actually doing today. So we need to evaluate the following expressions. It says negative 9 times x, right? Negative 9x is negative 9 times x plus y. And I'm asking you to evaluate it when x equals 1 and y equals 5. So that means where I see an x, I'm going to substitute, or I'm going to plug in the 1. And where I see a y, I'm going to plug in the 5. So I substitute everything in. Negative 9 times 1, right? It's in parentheses, so you know that I'm doing substitution. And then plus 5. So I do order of operations, do the multiplication first. Negative 9 times 1 is negative 9. The 5 is there. I end up with negative 4. I do the same thing for letter B, but this time it says z squared minus 4 when z equals 5. So where I see a z, I plug in 5. And just like I wrote in red, 5 squared means 5 times 5. So 5 times 5 is 25, and then I can subtract the 4. I'm following that order of operations. And that warm-up is getting us ready for what we're going to do today with the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is this right here. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Comes from completing the square on a standard form quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a is not 0. That was a lot. Formula can be used to solve any quadratic equation. So any equation I give you, you can use this to solve. Now the good news is you don't have to remember this formula. It is given to you on today's notes. It will be given to you on your homework. You have your reference sheet that you can write it on your reference sheet along with any examples that you want. So this very first one, and there's nothing for you to do. All you got to do is pay attention. I color-coded things that went together, and you'll see that as I work through it. So just like always, there's some steps for success for using the quadratic formula. So my directions or my question says use a quadratic formula to solve each equation. This right here is called standard form. There are other forms other than standard form, but for purposes of this class, we're always going to have it in standard form. It's always going to already equal 0. I just make things a little easier. So x squared plus 2x minus 3 equals 0. So I'm looking for what my solutions are. What could x be that would make this equation true? That's what it means by solve the equation. Step 1 says identify the a, b, and c. And over here in red, I said those are the coefficients from the equation. So the yellow is all representing the a's that we see throughout the example. The pink is representing the b's that I see throughout the examples. And the blue is representing the c's that I see throughout the example. Okay. I only color-coded on this one. If you want to color-code on them, go for it. So identify a, b, and c. So a is 1 because that's the coefficient of the first term. So there's no number there. If there's no number in front of the x squared, it's assumed that it's a 1. Then the next one, the middle term is my b value, so that's 2. And then the last one is my c value is negative 3. You have to take that negative sign with it. And you're thinking, well, it's a minus sign. Then take the minus sign with it. Okay, so it says minus 3 over there. So identified a, b, and c. Now I'm going to substitute in a, b, and c into the formula. Here's the formula. I'm plugging in this information. Where I see an a, I plug in 1. Where I see a b, I plug in 2. Where I see a c, I plug in 3. Just like the warm-up, I did substitution. Now I got to simplify. So that's what I'm going to do. Negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. I chose to put all of this that was under the square root into my calculator at once. 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 3. I plugged it all in at once and got 16. Now you may be thinking, Mr. Slover, this says negative 1 times 2, but up here it says negative b. Over the course of teaching this, if I say negative b, it doesn't always work out well in the favor for students. So I'm changing it so it's negative 1 times b. Okay, that way you're guaranteed to get the correct value in front of your square root. So we simplify the equation. We plugged all of that into my calculator. We got 16. Then it says simplify the radical, aka simplify the square root. The square root of 16 is 4. Once you take the square root, you are not taking it again. So I took it once. That was it. I hit root 16 on my calculator. It spit out the whole number 4. So I wrote down 4. Step 5, break apart into an addition or subtraction sign. Now up here, I didn't talk about it, but there's this red statement here. This plus minus is math shorthand. Okay, there is no plus minus button on your calculator. It is math shorthand. Instead of writing 2 separate equations or 2 separate solutions, sometimes mathematicians put a plus and a minus there. So an example could be if I'm making this up, this doesn't go along with the problem. If I have solutions of x is 10 and x is negative 10, my math shorthand would be x equals plus minus 10. Okay, that's the math shorthand instead of writing each one separate. Right? But since we want to see what the 2 values are for solving, we will write these 2 problems separate. So we start with shorthand up here, but now we're at the point where we need to break them into 2 different equations, if you will, and simplify them. So negative 2 plus 4 and negative 2 minus 4. And then I'm still over 2 in my denominator. So that's why it says break apart into an addition, that's the plus 1, and then a subtraction, that's the minus 1. And then I simplify, just like I did in the warm-up. Negative 2 plus 4 is 2. Divided by 2 gives me 1. There's one solution. Negative 2 minus 4 is negative 6. Divide by 2, that gives me negative 3. So yeah, that was a lot. But the good news is it's not really anything new. You know what coefficients are. We've talked about coefficients before. You may have forgotten, but we still have talked about them. You know how to do substitution. You just did that up here in the warm-up. And you know how to evaluate, which is what you just did in the warm-up. Okay, the only difference is now your evaluation is underneath the square root, and you have one that is a plus and one that's a minus. Right? So as you work through these, take your time. It's not a race to see who gets done first. Take your time. It is very, very easy to make mistakes on these. So that was our first example. Here's the second example. Use a quadratic formula to solve each equation. Directions are the same. Here's my steps. Nothing is highlighted. So if you want to, like I did in the previous example, if you want to highlight your A's and your B's and your C's to help you, go for it. You don't have to. So my 2 goes with my A value, my 3 goes with my B value, and then my negative 9 goes with my C value. So I identified it. Now I'm going to plug them into the equation. The equation's on the other side of the notes. You can easily turn your paper over, or you can already write it on your reference sheet. I simplify. 3 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 9 is 81. Negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. And 2 times 2 is 4. Simplify the radical. I hit square root 81, enter on my calculator. It gave me a 9. I break into an addition problem. There's my addition. And a subtraction problem. And then I simplify. Negative 3 plus 9 is 6. Divided by 4 is 1.5. Negative 3 minus 9 is negative 12. divided by 4 is -3. So I have two different answers. One is 1.5 and one is -3. Now in this one example, I talked through it a lot quicker because we had already worked through one of them together, and I took the time to explain very detailed step-by-step what I was doing. Letter B, I want you to try on your own. So you can pause this video, try letter B on your own. Sometimes it's going to take a few minutes. It takes anywhere from 2 to 7 minutes to do one of these problems. Right? So you work at different paces. I talk about that all the time. So once again, pause the video, actually try letter B on your own. When you are done, unpause the video, and we'll see if you have the same answer that I have. Okay, I hope that you paused the video and tried it on your own. So now you're back and you're checking everything. A was 4, B was -8, C was -1. You may have got a bit stuck on this because it said root 80 and root 80 didn't turn into anything. Or maybe your calculator spit out 4 root 5. That's fine. Or maybe it spit out a decimal. That's fine. Okay, I'm not too concerned about that. So like it said, turning into a decimal is okay. So at the very end, you should have got 2.1 or -0.1. Or maybe you got 8 plus 4 root 5 over 8 and 8 minus 4 root 5 over 8. There's several different options that you can get. So if you're unsure if what you got was right, turn it into a decimal and see if it matches what I have. 2.1 and -0.1. So today we focused on finding using the quadratic formula. So you're identifying A, B, and C, you're plugging it in, and then you're doing just some button mashing on your calculator.